Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of fluorescent mineral photography. It's a real challenge, you know? Getting those vibrant colors to pop in the dark, it's not as straightforward as snapping a picture of a well-lit landscape.
Absolutely. I've always been intrigued by those stunning fluorescent mineral photos. But the process sounds incredibly complex. What are some of the biggest hurdles photographers face?
Well, the biggest issue is that cameras aren't designed for this. They're optimized for well-lit scenes. We're talking long exposures, wildly varying brightness across the specimen. You might have intensely bright esperite next to barely visible hardy stenite. It's a real balancing act.
So it's not just about pointing and shooting?
Oh no, not at all. Dark adaptation is crucial. Your eyes need to adjust to the low light to judge exposure properly. And focus is a nightmare in low light. Many cameras struggle. So often you have to lock focus in bright light, then switch to darkness while maintaining that focus. It's a bit of a dance.
I see. And what about the distance from the lens to the subject?
That's another critical factor. Many lenses have a minimum focusing distance, often around 12 inches or more. So you might need to shoot from further away and crop later. It's all about maximizing image quality and getting that sharp focus. Using the highest image quality setting on your camera is key, even if it means a larger file size. You can always crop later.
Makes sense. And what about shooting modes, auto or manual?
Manual. Always. Auto mode is designed for well-lit scenes, not glowing rocks. Manual gives you complete control over exposure time, aperture, ISO, and white balance. You need that level of precision to avoid overexposure, especially with bright minerals like willemite or esperite.
But if someone must use auto mode, are there any workarounds?
Yeah, you can try adjusting exposure compensation. Decreasing it a few stops can help control overexposure. Also, try manually setting a low ISO, even in auto mode. High ISO introduces noise and graininess. And a tripod is essential, regardless of the mode, because those long exposures are unavoidable.
Right, long exposures. How do you determine the right exposure time?
That depends on many factors. The brightness of the subject, the UV lamp's wattage, the distance of the lamp, and the ISO setting. Greens and yellows are brighter to the camera than blues, so exposure times will vary. For example, very bright minerals might need only a second, while others might need 8 seconds or more. It's a lot of experimentation.
And what about those red fluorescent minerals? The article mentions some challenges with them.
Ah, yes, red rocks are notoriously difficult. It's because of the camera sensor's Bayer filter array. It has more green and blue sensitive elements than red. So, when you have a predominantly red subject, the camera lacks data from the other color channels, leading to a blurry, less detailed image. A foveon sensor, which is sensitive to all colors in each element, would be ideal, but those cameras are less common.
That's a really insightful point. I hadn't considered the sensor's limitations. So what about other settings like ISO, f-stop, and white balance?
I usually stick to ISO 100 for maximum detail and minimal grain, even if it means longer exposures. For the f-stop, it depends on the lens, but I find f/11 works well for me. And for white balance, I shoot in RAW and adjust it later to compensate for the blue bleed from the UV lamps. RAW gives you so much more flexibility in post-processing.
And what about UV lighting? How crucial is that?
Crucial. More lights mean brighter fluorescence, and brighter fluorescence means shorter exposure times, reducing blue bleed. The quality of the UV light is also important. For shortwave, Hoya U-325C filters are excellent. For longwave, Nichia 365 nanometers LEDs are a good choice. Some people even paint the rock with a handheld UV lamp while the shutter is open.
Wow, it's a whole science. What about backgrounds and post-processing?
I prefer a black background, but others use different approaches. Post-processing with software like Photoshop is essential for fine-tuning brightness, saturation, white balance, and correcting any imperfections. But remember, it's crucial to be ethical and not exaggerate or alter the image. Just enhance what's already there.
Absolutely. And what about those really challenging specimens with a mix of bright and dim minerals?
Ah, the hard rocks. Those require multiple shots at different exposures, then merging them in Photoshop for an HDR effect. Or, you can expose for the bright minerals and explain the dimmer ones in the description. Even smartphones with HDR can produce decent results with careful lighting and exposure control.
So it's a combination of technical skill, artistic vision, and a good dose of patience.
Exactly. And don't forget cleanliness. Dust and lint glow bright blue under UV light, so keeping everything clean is crucial. An ultrasonic cleaner can be a lifesaver. And remember, there's always more to learn. Keep experimenting, keep exploring, and keep those glowing rocks shining.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing your expertise. This has been a truly illuminating conversation.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Until next time, keep exploring the wonders of technology and science. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.